Hi, Build Up Dietitians. It's Connie Diekman, registered dietitian, food nutrition consultant here in St. Louis. And I'm excited to be with you I guess it's afternoon on the East Coast, to be with you today to talk a little bit about who I am, how I look at nutrition, how I look at our profession, and how we all are in this together. I know that's what we're saying right now with COVID, but reality is, as dietitians, as part of the Academy, we are all in this together. So to get started, in case a lot of you are not familiar with my career, I'll do this very quickly. Number one, I am a food nutrition consultant here in St. Louis. I am a former Academy president, and I am just in 2 weeks finishing up my time as past chair of the weight management DPG. In my career, I have worked as a consultant for many, many years. But for the last almost 20, I was at Washington University here in St. Louis, and it was a very interesting, and I have to tell you, it's a perfect example of why we all need each other. It was one of those opportunities that took me a little bit out of my comfort area, and I went to friend colleagues and said, I can't do big pots. Some of you listening may remember me saying that to you. I don't do that. That's not me. And I'll never forget the response was, but you aren't going to do the big pots. You're going to help the chefs understand how to prepare healthier menu items for the students and the faculty and the staff on campus. And that's what I did through my career at WashU. I worked with our dining services so that we did have healthier menu options. We did a lot of menu marking so that people on campus knew what were better for you options, and they didn't have to go read labels and, all of those kinds of things. I also am a CSSD, so I worked with our student athletes, which is a really wonderful, in my mind, thing for us to be doing. And I know a lot of you do that. But the gratitude you would see on the athlete's face for the information you provided them and the support you gave them, it just was really gratifying to be able to tell an athlete, if you tried this as the meal before, as the meal after, whatever the guidance might be, and then when they did it and they felt good, to see the joy on their face, that's a great reward for us as well as for them. And then I also worked in our student health service, so the real traditional dietitian. In many ways, what I did a lot of my career as a cardiovascular dietitian, counseling the patient, counseling the client. It was through all of that I had a great deal of experience in the area of eating disorders. And, that's one that can be a real bumpy road. So you may not receive the gratification quite as quickly as you do in working with the athletes. But when a student would really fight that road and work hard to understand what their eating disorder was doing to them and how they could be in charge of what they did and didn't need that eating disorder to control their eating, to feel good, whatever the underlier might be, it was obviously very gratifying. It was very challenging because, of course, we had a lot of hard days as opposed to the gratifying days. But it's an enhancement for me as a dietitian because it helped me realize that working with individuals is about understanding them. It's about knowing where they want to go. It's about knowing how they assimilate the information we give them and walking them down the path to get them to where they're comfortable with a healthy eating plan that they can enjoy. So that's kind of where I've been career-wise. For the last year, I did leave the university a year ago, so I'm back as a food nutrition consultant, working with industry, working with public relations, media, a variety of things on that line. But what I really wanted to talk about in the time that we have here together is why I'm so passionate about all of us being a part of the Academy, why I'm so passionate about, the things that I have done over the years with the Academy. As a past president, you get to see our members and the hard work they do and the battles they fight every single day to be recognized, to make sure that they defend us in the policy arena, to make sure that, they're on the healthcare team. Obviously right now that's a huge one, and my immense thanks go out to all of our colleagues who are working on the front line with individuals who are fighting COVID. And we all know the importance of good nutrition in fighting disease of any type. And so it's really, great admiration I have for our colleagues who are still in there taking care of their patients and their clients as they deal with the COVID. But, as the president, you could go around and hear and listen and see. And that made it really easy to understand how important it is for us to work together as the Academy, whether it's your affiliate, the Academy National, the DPGs. It's in sharing of our information. It's in sharing of our knowledge. It's in sharing of our willingness to support each other, in my mind, that we grow as individuals and that we as a profession grow. So it's when we are able to turn to, we're able to turn to Sherry, which I did, and said, Sherry, I have a 2-year-old, well, at the time he was less than a year, a 2-year-old grandson who has a peanut allergy. And, what do I tell my daughter? And what do we know about? Without my involvement, I probably never would have met Sherry because we don't live in the same area. Same thing certainly goes with a lot of you who are on this Facebook Live. I've called you a time or two to say, hey, I never really worked in this area. As my example earlier, I never did management. I never did food service. That's not my arena. It was cardiovascular disease for much of my career. But by tapping into all of you who knew it and understood it, it gave me an ability to, oh, got it. This is where I'm going. Or, okay, there's a reason I never stepped into that arena of our practice opportunities. And then I think the other big thing is, the wonderful network we get from the support component. So, when you're struggling and you've developed a friendship with a colleague across the country, they look at things differently maybe than your family because they've become a friend who understands your career. And so it's easy to use them for sounding boards. It's easy to use them for validation of what you're looking at, what you're doing. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. In today's world, when we're looking at science that's evolving so rapidly, when we're looking at challenges to our practice from so many arenas, we need to be able to tap each other to ask those hard questions, to ask, am I really on the right track when it comes to my interpretation of, what happens in, what's a good example, what's happening in the agriculture industry, or as we look at the food supply right now, it's important to talk to people who are in the trenches. So in having been a part of the Academy, I've had the opportunity to work with people from dairy, people from walnut, people from, citrus, people from so many different arenas that they can give you the facts, and it helps us then put together how we are going forward with how we practice. And I think that makes us, and I'm pretty sure it's a correct statement, it makes us better practitioners. Because if we continue to just do what we learned, in my case, it's been a while, what we learned and what we read in journals and the meetings we go to, we may never get the full picture of what's happening in the individual's life, in the individual industry, so forth and so on. So that accessibility, that networking, that relationship, whatever word, suits your fancy with regards to the opportunities that I've had in networking with people. That to me is what's really been nice about being an active part of the Academy. As I say that, I know there's a lot of people who, question, well, why doesn't the Academy do, and why aren't we saying, and could we be doing more? And, let's be honest, I asked a lot of those questions and still ask those kinds of questions. And that is our responsibility. I know people don't like to hear it, but the Academy is us. Sure, Chicago and DC execute the work that we need executed, but it's us. And it's what do we see and how do we see things should be going. And, I think a great example is the House of Delegates back in January, their meeting, which was a virtual meeting as their mid-year usually is, their meeting was on evidence-based practice. And they had good conversations around what does that mean? And what's our responsibility? And how can we help our members understand what evidence-based practice means so that we are continuing to do what we say, that we practice on the science of food and nutrition. So when you look at how the Academy functions, it's up to us to ensure that they're functioning in the way in which we see practice going. So, that example is a perfect one from the standpoint of a lot of people have been questioning, why are some members doing X, or why aren't we saying this? And the whole concept of evidence-based practice, bringing the House of Delegates together to talk about what do we see, how do we help the members, what kind of tools can we give people so that when they read a press release, when they read a journal article, they know, is this something that is, I better change my practice, or is this just one more piece? And as I say that, it calls me to reflect on, one of the things I didn't say in terms of when I was in my career. I'm still in practice. My career, I spent a whole lot of time here in St. Louis in the media. I was on 3 different TV channels over the course of 15 years. And then, of course, I was lucky to be able to do the radio for the Academy out of Chicago for, 12 years, 10 years, something like that. So one of the things that I still do pretty consistently is reporters will contact me to ask me to translate the latest studies so that then they can write their press release. They can write the piece that appears, in the media. And I just actually did one yesterday, and this is why it comes to mind. And it was a perfect example of what I said a minute ago with regards to, how we look at studies and how we interpret them in our practice. This was one study, good study, but it was one study that looked at, what the fat intake, saturated fat versus unsaturated, and its impact on mental cognition. It was randomized control, it was done really well, but it was small, it was short, it was first. So it was, from my perspective to the reporter, it was exactly, this is one study, we should look at it, but we don't switch practice based upon it. And that's why it's so important to understand how to look at evidence-based practice and studies and understand how these things fit into our practice. When you think about, being a part of the Academy, as I work with students, I obviously, as you might imagine, I strongly promote that they get involved. And I do hear back from the students that, I don't know exactly how to do that. And my answer is always, it's really very simple. You step up, either at your affiliate level, and that is how I started. Well, technically I started in St. Louis, so the St. Louis Dietetic Association. I said, what can I do? I'd like to be involved. Is there something I can do? And that's how many of us who are still leaders. I am, as I said, finishing up in 2 weeks as past chair of weight management. Contact myself, contact Tracy Oliver, contact Becky Reeves, who's the chair-elect. We'd love to have new members. When you look at how can I do, it's as simple as, I want to be a part of weight management. I want to be a part of FCP, SCAN. Look up who the leaders are and send them an email. and I promise you, you will be contacted. Weight management, and I think all DPGs do this, weight management always does a volunteer survey. And we do ask for people who want to volunteer, but you can do it any time of year. So, as you renew your membership now, and remember, we've got till June 30th to do that because of everything with COVID. But when you renew your membership, think about, other than just renewing with dollars, what is it you'd like to do? How can you make a difference? And, I think you'll find there's plenty of people waiting to pull you in and let you make a difference. At the same time, I will say to you, there are other ways we should be involved. I was very active here in St. Louis as a part of the American Heart Association. Actually, my very first job, a long time ago, was in lipid research at WashU Med School. So it's kind of funny how my career went. Started there, ended there. But then I went with the American Heart Association as a consultant dietitian on an outpatient basis. That led me down the path of being involved with the AHA, such that I moved into the board of directors for that, both at St. Louis and Missouri. And that's another great place for us to be, is in those parallel organizations. Get involved in heart, get involved in diabetes, get involved in diabetes educators. And I know a lot of us do those things. But when you do those things, it allows the dietitian reach to expand, and it allows others to understand what it is we bring to the table. Why it's so important to include the RD as a part of whatever takes place. As I said, American Heart, it kind of comes back to me. Tomorrow here in St. Louis is the AHA Heart Walk. Obviously, it's virtual. It's not in person. But, and I won't remember how many years ago, but after I had been president of the St. Louis Heart Association, because that's what it was called at that time, chairing the Heart Walk that year. So, that was who was the chair of the Heart Walk. And it gave people another view of what dietitians do and who we are. And, that we're more than just, don't eat this, eat that. So it's just a thought for you. It's an opportunity. When you look at how all of this comes together from the standpoint of why does it make a difference, us being involved in our own profession, in complementary industries, so as I said, whether it's PR firms knowing us, whether it's the ag industry, commodity boards, even businesses. Obviously, being here in St. Louis, I've been very fortunate to work through the years with Monsanto Bayer. Being involved with all of those organizations allows us as a profession to become recognized and stronger. That increases our opportunities as we go forward. Yes, the clinical dietitian is the core of who we are, and they still are, and it appears likely will be the core of who we are, just because of the aging population and the needs of society. But when you look at the vast array of opportunities, as RDs, we can function in so many industries. If you think in terms of the RDs who are employed by PR firms as, VPs, executive VPs, when you think in terms of a very good friend, colleague of mine was president of one of the branches of the community college here in St. Louis as an RD. It's a skill base we bring to a table that allows us to really complete a lot of job functions. So with that said, I guess what I'm kind of trying to get to is that, from the opportunity standpoint, I see our profession growing. I see our opportunities growing. And having worked with students in the ISPE program at Fontbonne here in St. Louis over the last couple of years, I'm pretty excited about some of the kids. They're young adults, they're not kids, sorry guys. The young adults who are anxious to become a part of the profession, anxious to make a difference. One of the things my students do in the class I teach is they do public health education campaigns. And when you look at what they came up with this year, I was really impressed. campaigns that were about, one of the ones that, really hit me was a young male student who wanted to do an education program on vaping. And you might go, well, that has nothing to do with us as a profession. But it does, because it has to do with the health of young adults. And if he, as a young adult, could do a campaign that teaches them about the importance of health and then what the negative is of vaping, it might allow them to recognize and make behavior changes. Many other really exciting ones that were done. So I think the opportunities for the profession are immense. And I tell students all the time, and I've told them this ever since I worked with dietetic technician students many, many years ago. Your opportunities are only limited by your willingness to think outside the box. If you think in terms of, that's an interesting opportunity. Now, could I do that? What would it take for me to do that? I'm going to give it a try. And that's what's going to allow us as a profession to reach more places, meet the needs, because obviously they're in a lot more places than just the hospitals. And I think it's going to open the doors for more professionals, which, granted, we have to watch our funnel to get them into the RD exam, but it still is an opportunity that I see very strongly for us. In addition to, all of the involvement piece, and another component that is kind of a passion of mine, and it certainly falls off of the evidence-based practice piece, is that we need to remember science is evolving. We all know that. What we learned in college is not, in many cases, the same. But science is a body of evidence. And there's a reason for that. And we practice based upon that body of evidence. But with that said, it is evolving. So just as I said, the study I was reviewing yesterday, it was looking at saturated fats versus unsaturated and impact on cognitive health. Okay, it's one study. Obviously, I'm not going to tell a client, you need to do this because it said. But we do need to remember to incorporate evolving science in what we do. But we got to make sure what's the right word? We've got to make sure we preface it with that it's evolving evidence. So in other words, when we look at some of the things that are happening around us, we have to remember that weight management chair, I'm going to use this as an example. The scientific evidence associated with obesity and disease risk is very clear. It's very clear. We have to convey that as we work with clients. If, however, a client isn't ready or doesn't want to talk about, a diet for weight loss, that's great. Because in my practice, and I think this is how most of us look at it, changing behaviors to achieve a healthier body and hopefully a healthier weight is a process. It's not a one-shot diet. It's not a one-time visit. It's a what can you do now, what can you do there, what can you do, what can you do. But we have to recognize that there is science, there is evidence to support obesity as a health risk. We also, of course, have to remember that an individual who is struggling to change their body weight needs to be respected for that. We all know, fat shaming, weight shaming occurs, but that doesn't negate that the body of evidence shows us a body is healthier when it carries less body fat. And as I say that, maybe that's the communication we need to be sure we do, and that is, it is about body fat. It's not the number on the scale, it's what's the distribution through here. And that's, of course, what we know is the health risk piece. So practicing based upon the evidence, we cannot deviate from that. But we need to acknowledge that evidence is changing. And if a client says to you, hey, I heard this supplement might make a difference, we really shouldn't be jumping immediately on it and saying, oh no, never do that kind of thing. We should have a conversation and then help them make a decision that works for them. And obviously the Academy does a lot to help us with that, whether it's the journal, whether it's the EAL, which now has changed its name, but old habits die hard, position papers, our colleagues. If you don't know, as I said at the very beginning of this, when my grandson was diagnosed, it was like, okay, I know Sherry will be able to tell me, Sherry's going to help me understand what I should tell our daughter to do. Because he was so young, it's like, is this really what we should be doing? So, that's a plus as well with validating the science piece. So we need to make sure we support the science. We need to make sure that we support each other as we do what we do. But with that said, we need to hold each other accountable. We need to question. We need to say, hey, did I misunderstand you? I thought I heard you say X, Y, and Z, but I thought the evidence said whatever it might be. We shouldn't be hesitant to have those conversations. I know they're not easy. But one of the big challenges in Missouri, hopefully we make it through the end of today and our licensure law has not been attacked. Licensure is being attacked throughout the country. And we need to ensure that we are practicing based upon the body of evidence, that we support each other as we practice. It's always bad to say use each other, but you know what I mean. We use each other so that we know we're practicing in the best interest of our clients and the profession, which ultimately then will make any challenges to licensure less desirable, because the people who are challenging us won't have any grounds to stand upon. If we've got too much going on and too many differences, legislators don't see that we still have science. What they see is, well, why can't this profession or that profession do what you do? And we don't need to have you licensed. So I think we're kind of approaching on time here, so I don't want to talk on forever. I tried to answer some of the questions as they came in. I don't know if we've got more. Let me see if I can look. Okay, I don't see more. That is not acting up. It is misbehaving. That may be telling. If I could wave a magic wand and make something happen, what would it be? Well, let's see. If I could wave a magic wand, get TROA implemented so that Treat and Reduce Obesity Act is in force, get reimbursement for all medical conditions by which we do provide care, get all challenges to licensure to go away, to get us licensed in every state, because believe it or not, we're still not there yet. It's going to have to be a pretty big magic wand. But I think if we all are in this together, there's 75,000 of us in the Academy. There's over 100,000 of us in CDR. So, technically there's over 100,000 of us, but those who get Academy information, it's in the ballpark of 75, 72,000. Think of what we could do. Think of what we could do. And please, don't hesitate to speak up when you don't like what we're doing, because that's the only way we grow individually and we grow as an academy. With that said, I am Connie Diekman on Facebook, CB Diekman on Twitter and Instagram, and my webpage, let's see, I've been gone for a year. It's only taken me a year to get it together. My webpage will be cbdiekman.com, but it is still in development, so it's not out there yet. But please do contact me. I'd love to have the conversation so that we can, in fact, talk about what it is you see, what it is you think, to enhance for all of us. So with that said, because I think we're just at the half hour, thanks everybody for spending some time with me today. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for supporting the profession, the credential, and let's keep hanging in there together because in number, I know we can do this. Please stay well, enjoy your weekend, and hopefully see a lot of you in Indianapolis at Vinci in October. Take care, everybody. Bye.